man, the problem isn't just the police. The problem is the whole entire system.
Charlotte Liberation Party happened because we needed to get our voices heard in areas like this, in areas in which people that don't look like me, don't look like my friends at all.
Black Lives Matter! Keep the love that you have in your heart. Yeah. Keep the unity. Put the unity back into the community.
Gonna keep protesting. This doesn't end this year or next year or anytime. This is 365. Every day for me is Black History Month.
I'm black and I'm proud. I'm black and I'm proud. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Thank you guys for joining Generational Talk. It's been a few weeks since George Floyd was killed by the police, and it was followed by a bunch of protests globally in many cities, including Charlotte. The video that we just played was a protest hosted by the Charlotte Liberation Party. We have two of the founders of the Charlotte Liberation Party are here with us today, along with other guests that have been very active in the local scene, the Charlotte scene, for the past couple nights. So without further ado, I just want to have everybody introduce themselves.
My name is Cameron Parker. I'm one of the co-founders of the Charlotte Liberation Party. I'm 19 years old, and I started protesting about a week ago.
And so Cameron, this is a generational talk. So normally we focus on just like generational dynamics. And so you're 19, you said. Would you consider yourself Gen Z or millennial?
I guess Gen Z. I don't really pay attention to that stuff, just so like who I'm around, because I tend to have younger friends, older friends, friends my age, so I never really know which one I actually fit in.
Whatever you are, it seems like since I would say Parkland, many of the marches and the movements and the activism has definitely been, the face of it has definitely been Gen Z, around late millennials, Gen Z. So just thank you guys for getting things going, and whatever you're doing, it's working, because it seems like the country is finally starting to pay attention to it.
How's everybody doing? My name's Darius. I was born in 1994. I currently live in Maryland, so I haven't been to any of the protests because of the COVID thing, but I worked in the General Assembly, so a lot of time protests happen, right outside the state capitol, and, I'm there for plenty of those.
Tommy, 1988, and I have not gone to any of the protests, although I do have a few family members that have participated in a couple of the rallies that we've had in town.
My name's Kaden Knight. I'm from around Charlotte. I've lived here my whole life.
And you're one of the founders of the Charlotte Liberation Party, right?
Yes, I am.
What's up, guys? My name's Eli. I'm 24. I was born in 1996. I guess you would consider myself as a millennial. I forget who said it before, but I don't really look at myself as millennial versus Gen Z. He kind of took all the points there, but I went to my first protest ever the night that with the big the kill box technique or all that stuff. I'll get more into it later, but yeah, it's just really eye-opening. So great to be here.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name's Keaton Shaheen, born in 1995. So I'm 24 now. I'll be 25 later this year. Consider myself a millennial, but like we've talked about, Ryan, my identity is kind of up in the air, I guess, because I'm a cusper or whatever. But yeah, I have not been to any physical protests. With my wife pregnant, we've just been kind of avoiding that. But my form of protest has been through music and through my voice on social media. So it's been that's been my avenue to spread the message.
And thanks for coming back, being on the show again, Keith. So you were on the last one, featured some of your music video. We featured a music video that you created.
I'm Chris Nealy. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I got started with this. I've been on the ground, I think 13 of the last 16 nights, starting with Beatties Ford Road. And it's been a long fight. I remember, the last time I was really out doing much protest was in 2001, 2002, during the post 9/11 war stuff, and I was at Chapel Hill. I am an OG millennial, like in the cusp or on the opposite side. I was born in '83.
83. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm almost
There you
not
go.
a millennial. I'm
Yeah.
the opposite end. But it's been an eye-opening couple of weeks. I've got my bachelor's degree in sociology, my minor's in social justice, my master's in social work, and again, still the white privilege of being like cis heterosexual white Southern male who's woke with all the paperwork and license and education behind it. The way, I posted a thing the other day, and I don't mean to make light of it, but I process things through humor, and I feel like the police in general, and this isn't a jab at the cops necessarily, but the police in general taking our push for equality the wrong direction. It became, instead of we see what it is, we need to treat everybody equally, like the way we treat white folks at traffic stops. It became we're going to beat the hell out of everybody equally, and it's for better or worse, man. I think it's pulled so many different people together. I know everybody's seeing the memes and the jokes now, but it's real. Like, you got the Amish out protesting, like y'all cross some lines. Like you got every background of person across the planet coming out together, and that's been the beautiful thing out of through the smoke of all this. And Chris, you were out last night, correct? Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired, so I apologize, guys. I was in the last few nights. I think the first week I put in a little bit over 50 miles marching, and just much like this crew, I tend to be one of the oldest folks out there. My knees aren't like they used to be, and I brought out my bike in this past few days and joined what's unofficially like the bike squad. You may have seen the folks rolling around on bikes, skateboards, skates, and now we're kind of Wheels for Equality is the new kind of official tag we're going with, having an IG page and everything else. But yeah, we'll talk about that later too if you guys have questions. It's beautiful, man. Like through all the heartache and blood and bruises and fighting and stuff, I am seeing, at least from my experiences over the last 5 to 6 days, a lot more kind of unity happening across the board with the actual protests happening on the ground, as evidenced by, like, I think in the last 3 or 4 days, there's been 0 arrests, there's been 0 kind of vandalism, there's been 0 escalated engagements with officers and protesters in Charlotte. But yeah. Kaden and Cameron, what made you guys form the Charlotte Liberation Party?
We wanted to make an Instagram page at first just to kind of have a hub around Charlotte where people can know about protests that are organized and that are safe and peaceful, and kind of just, that information about different things can be distributed. And then I went to a protest, and me and him had a dialogue, and we just felt like we should definitely have protests more in areas where, there aren't going to be protests, or there are majority white people and not really any black people that live in the community there. And we just felt like, especially in the Myers Park area and South Park area where we kind of grew up and went to school, that would be like a great starting point. Yeah, that was one of the significant things I realized with the last week's march. It seemed like the more we went on, the more people actually started to leave their house or they pulled over on the side of the road and they joined the march. Cameron, you're a filmmaker. You currently attend the school that I graduated from, UNCSA, and you study directing, correct?
Yes, I do.
Have you thought about using some of your skills as for activism, your filmmaking skills?
I have nothing in relation to what's going on, more so representation within film of Black people doing regular things, instead of the generalization that Black people tend to get put in. I just right now, it's so much going on with activism that there's not really much time for me to focus my skills towards putting that into film. And there's already so many other people that are doing that. So I want to make narrative stories that show representation and show Black people having fun, Black people, stuff that isn't associated with like deep-seated issues within the Black community, Black people having fun, and other stuff in which we're not represented as being happy or laughing.
Have you guys been active throughout the week? I think you left a post on your page that you wanted to take it easy and regroup after your last march.
we are planning a protest within the week. That's in the works right now. But yeah, we just experienced a lot of burnout, one might say, and so we were trying to take it easy, take a break. But we're coming back this week, and we're also helping Thug Life protests and Kids Fed Up with their Juneteenth event, which is happening on Juneteenth. So that's what we're focused on right now.
If you guys want to discuss any specific aspects of your agenda or platform for the party?
I would say our main goal for the party is to kind of just educate people and not normally people that follow Black Lives Matter or what the history of oppression in America, just kind of people that normally don't get where we're coming from, just kind of get the dialogue started. I mean, even if it's not reached to a point where they fully understand or they're I get it, it's just a good thing that kind of be heard and openly listened and not be just in a big argument where nobody's getting any points or getting anything across.
Yeah. Also, intersectionality is a big thing. To let people know that you don't get to pick and choose what Black Lives Matter. It's all Black lives. You don't get to pick and choose that just because they are not trans or queer that they don't fit within the Black Lives Matter narrative. It's an intersectional fight. So that's what we're really trying to push to.
So I noticed you guys had the police help you out too with the march in Myers Park area. Was that intentional, or can you walk me through that? Tell me about how that happened.
Okay. So the first march that we did, it wasn't intentional. I didn't even know that they would be helping us out. I didn't even know that it got the first protest got out that far enough that we would need a police escort and things of that just to block off roads and stuff like that. And the officers were really nice, and they were talking to me, open dialogue, and I met an officer, Sergeant Rowland, and me and him been talking back and forth, and he's just been really open with helping and trying to help us with protests, getting roads blocked off and stuff like that. So at first it was not intentional whatsoever to have the police help, but now it's kind of a good thing, so for future protests, because the numbers have been growing from the 2 protests that we've done, so it's gonna be useful in the future.
Yeah, that's about the extent that we want the police to be involved as well.
And Cameron, I know you go to film school, so one of the things that they teach at the film school that we both are connected to is definitely how to work with locations. So
with you guys starting this up, has this changed the way you view just work the police or your community in general? Were there things after doing this that I guess you weren't aware of?
Usually with protests like these, in the most recent years that the Black Lives Matter has been going, it's usually just predominantly African American. With a lot of the protests I've gone to that we've held, it has been a lot different races and a lot of Caucasian white people out there, which is I wasn't expecting, and it's really showing me this time it's more a unity thing.
I think for me, it's made me look more into the community and how the community can work alongside each other instead of always needing a hand from the police department or the government, in which case we can help each other a lot more than we actually think. And so I've really pushed my ideals further into defunding and abolishing the police. That's been a really big thing in my head lately. I've been reading a lot more Black socialism, the Black Panther Party. I've already read a lot. My favorite Black Panther is Fred Hampton. So it's always been very prevalent in my mind that socialism is the way to go, because we need to help everybody instead of just trying to look out for ourselves, because that obviously hasn't been doing well.
I feel like there's defund and abolish the police is one of those things that we're hearing from a lot of people, and it means something different to many of the people that are using the same words. And so I was wondering, from your perspective, what that means to you, and like would there be alternatives that are put in place, and yeah, just generally what your idea is of what an alternative would look like.
Yeah, I personally think that defund is the much safer thing when people talk about anything in pertaining to the police. What I really want is the abolishment of the police. Obviously, it's not an easy path. It's not a short path, but it's a path that I think that we need to take. And and luckily there are examples of people doing this. Obviously, Minneapolis has completely relied on themselves. In Seattle, there's that whole zone around the center that is kind of like working as a community and like building itself back up. And then also there is Cooperation Jackson. I don't know where they're located in, but they're a very good organization.
Jackson, Mississippi, I believe.
Yeah, and they're helping they're helping the community and showing the community that we can all work together as one instead of relying on outside forces that don't really think of us as people.
And also, actually in Camden, New Jersey, they actually defunded the police in 2012 and redid their whole police force, because at one point Camden, New Jersey, like led the world in like murders, and it was really bad. Like they were high in dropout rates and everything. And yeah, they completely defunded it. Murder cases they went from 60% solve rate to a 61% solve rate. They have less fatalities. They only had 3 reportings of excessive force by the police after they did it, and it's been a better overturn for the community.
Yeah, so like with Camden, they abolished the police department that they had, but then they recreated a new one. And so is that what people are talking about? Are they talking about abolishing the existing police department and then restructuring a new one, or are some people talking about just completely getting rid of the idea of having police?
Well, I can't speak for everybody else, nor will I, but I would prefer abolishing and looking for a more community type of policing, because I don't think that there is any sort of reform that can be done to the already existing police organization that will change it, because there already has been reform. But the thing with reform is that people either ignore it or it just keeps on adding up, and reform doesn't really help lessen the negative effect that the police has. It only reinforces how long they can stay here. So I personally feel like abolishment and self-policing within our own communities is the way to go, but I also cannot speak for everybody else that says defund or abolish.
I personally think it should be abolishment, then rebuilding the police from the ground up. I mean, I think it's personally crazy how somebody that has to work in law and deal with law 24/7 doesn't even have to attend law school, and they kind of just get like a crash course of everything in like a setting before they graduate the police academy. I think there should be screenings on mental health and
Yes.
kind of things that you're kind of I don't think how a person was raised is defined, but definitely I don't know how to go about that, but kind of definitely trying to find a way to there shouldn't really be racist or people that don't care about a certain group of people's lives protecting the whole community, because you're excluding one group out of the community that you don't care for.
Chris, can you add to that?
Yeah, a little bit. On a very micro scale, I'm considering kind of what's happening in Charlotte right now. At least with the group I've been with the last few nights has been Million Youth March, and I don't know the background of how the leadership there is operating, but I know that at least the last 3 nights that I've been out, and it may have been longer. I apologize, my days are blurring together. But CMPD has really pulled off and given us space. I think that's been an intentional move. I, for one, I'm not speaking for that group by any means at all. I'm not leadership with them. I personally, I had hesitation at first, getting out, and again, maybe it's that naivety of being a white guy, of, the cops are out here and they're blocking traffic for us. Let's let them do that piece. They're working for us. They're getting paid. They might as well do it. But that's also where things can escalate. And I'll be the first to say, I'm not talking about like throwing rocks and fireworks. I'm not talking about the major things, flashbangs and stuff. I'm talking about like walking by and, you know, a fuck 12 or are we okay saying that on this episode? Is that language filter okay?
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, go.
Okay. Yeah, you know, and that's freedom of speech. You absolutely get to say that. But, you know, fuck 12 and fingers up at the cops. I'm okay with that. That's part of First Amendment while we're out here. But you also then have the cops, again, majority from my interactions with them have either been neutral or might be saying something that's not rude. That's just like, hey man, I got your back. Just keep going that way. But then you can completely, every time there's the cops been around, there's at least one just running their mouth, and it feels very insightful. It's like, or not insightful like that, but inciting, right? It's just trying to get a rise out of somebody. And so when we went out a few nights ago, and that was the first time that I saw that, like, where are there no officers anywhere around? And it was like, yeah, I think we're going to try to do it ourselves tonight. But we're going to let us try it out. And it's been amazing, man. And I will say that I think from the group as a whole, it's more relaxing and more calming for everybody to not have a police presence, because police means something so much different now. So many of us in that group have been tear gas and flashbanged and shot with pepper balls over the last couple of weeks. But there is some tension there anyway. But also, you know, for myself, I don't want to see, in general, amazingly enough, even when we're on our bikes and stop traffic, if we run into 300-400 cars in a night during a march, I'm not seeing more than 2 or 3 that look visibly upset. I'm not seeing anybody throw a finger up. It's just that visible, like, oh my God, get out of the way. But that's very few people. But I also don't want cops to be around if somebody, you know, if they want to hop out of their car and scream like, fuck you guys, get out of the way. I don't want to see that person get shot by a cop either. And so, you know, I just think that space, that buffer zone, giving that distance there is helping. And I for one, am taking that as a micro study of what is it like when citizens kind of police themselves in a situation going through an uptown busy section without police escorts, and can it work? And yeah, we are seeing right now it absolutely can work. And so I'm very interested in what that looks like on, you know, dismantling or defunding police departments on a larger scale.
On the topic of self-policing, and, you know, if we got rid of the you know, an official police department and maybe people tried to do more self-policing, I was just curious, like, are people thinking that we would have like citizens arrests and things like that, or would people just not be arrested at all for transgressions? And I'm just thinking of this because, you know, we also had the situation in Georgia where there was an attempt at an alleged citizen's arrest, and that also turned out very poorly. And so we may not be, we may be just trading one bad option for another in terms of how things could play out.
Yeah, I was going to chime in earlier on a question similar when we were just talking about the abolishment of police and things like that, and how it would work with an alternative like community-led law enforcement. Personally, I am not super on the side of completely getting rid of the police. I get like maybe taking out their unions, like in the unions that hold them. I think there's so many hoops to jump through when you're trying to get things done with police, especially when they commit a crime, and just seeing them convicted and charged and everything. So I'm not completely for that. I'm not sure exactly what it would look like without the police and how it would completely be, but maybe a hybrid of reforming the police, defunding the police, complete training, like everything Kaden said, with more background checks and everything. There needs to be change, but maybe it's more of a co-op where it's like we develop a community-led organization that cooperates and works with the police. Because I just think there's so many still good police officers that want to do good. I don't think we should completely get rid of people who feel like their calling is to help the community, even though at the same time recognizing that there are a ton of bad cops and racist cops, and that needs to end. So somewhere kind of in a mutual hybrid.
A lot of people talk about, I guess, the individual cops, but really it's the system around it. So again, like Kaden was saying, it's the police unions. I know in Maryland, the way it works, if you want to, charge somebody if they misbehave or get them booed from the department, there's a 3-man group. It's the chief of police, somebody appointed by both the chief of police and the police union and then the police union member. And so most of the time, you know, it takes 2 out of 3 in order for something to happen. And
Right.
if the police union, along with the chief, choose the third member, then most of the time nothing's going to happen. So it's just things like that where the system reinforces the behavior and the law just isn't constructed in a way to where they can be held accountable. And
Yep.
I think when we get into talking about the individual behavior, I think that's looking at the trees a little bit too closely and not the broader environment, which I think is, you know, super toxic for getting anything done.
Like with me, like the police is just like a big locker room. It's like one of those things where, like, you know, you see many videos of where one officer, you know, is either have somebody in chokehold or standing on with somebody's neck with their knee, and the other officers aren't doing anything. And that's because
Right.
there's been a trend of officers who, you know, they see excessive force, they might report it and they get fired, not the cop that used the excessive force. And it's just like when you're in a locker room when you're younger, or like you see something happen and you don't want to say anything to, like, you know, the higher authority because action might not be taken. And then if action is not taken, then everybody in the locker room is going to be like, you know, picking on you or, you know, like, you know, trying to rough you up. And it's just like one of those things that we have to, like, you know, get out of the police force too as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you had 4 police officers involved with Floyd. I think that kind of just blows this bad apple argument out of the window. And also too, you know, we saw in Buffalo where in mass the people resigned that were part of that unit because of the fact that they were trying to hold one of the officers accountable for pushing somebody. I completely agreed with a lot of what Kaden had to say. I think I do think that it maybe not all communities, but in some communities it is time to, like, abolish it for the purposes of restructuring it, so that, like, it seems to me that it's quite easy to become a cop in America and very, very hard to get removed. And it seems like that's the exact inverse of what it should be, where it should be extremely, extremely difficult. Like what Kaden was saying, you should need extensive training. Like like I hear people talking about, well, they just need, like, you know, a training seminar from an expert in de-escalation. It's like, no, they need to be the experts in de-escalation. They need to be the ones that are that well versed in how to do these things, and that coming from that place of empathy and compassion, not being trained in a 2-hour seminar. So I agreed with what Kaden had to say about that. We need to restructure and do a lot better job of who we're screening and reverse that issue where it needs to be it needs to be very hard to become a police officer and extremely easy to lose that job if you slip up in the slightest.
An angle that I've not heard anybody talk about is what I keep referring to as right to resist. And I've talked to several attorneys to figure out if I'm just missing something here. And to use a kind of an extreme, vulgar piece of this, but it's a situation we know happens. You know, if you're talking about a single female driving a vehicle and hits the blue lights, right? So she sees blue lights behind her on the dark road. Does she have the right to resist at that point? No, and she doesn't, because then she's fleeing. And if she pulls over and then she keeps her window cracked just a little bit, does she have the right to resist? You know, by law, it's interpreted, yeah, but no, we see time and time again, no, you don't, because then it escalates. And if he asks her, this male officer demands she gets out of the vehicle because of reasonable cause or reasonable suspicion, does she have the right to resist? Not really, because then she's going to be handcuffed. And my point is, at some point between there and when she's being raped in the back of the squad car, there's no protection as a citizen that you can. There's no point where you now can legally resist a police officer, and that's absurd to me. And that to me is one of these things that would be. I'm not separate from the argument of defunding or dismantling or leaving it alone. That to me is something that shouldn't take. I don't understand why I'm not hearing anybody talk about that. I don't understand why that's not already common practice. There's 8 of us here. 8 of us are walking down the street, and we saw 4 guys choking one man out in the street. It would be questionably negligent criminally for us to just, like, break out cameras and film this and watch them murder this person on the street. We would
without getting involved.
Yeah, we would intervene. We'd physically intervene. We'd get them off.
Yeah.
And hell, based on where you're at, you might get keys to the city. They'd give us an award for saving somebody's life. And it's an absurdity that when folks come across a police situation like this, and you're, somebody saying, "I can't breathe," and you've got 30 people with cameras, and they're yelling, "Get off of them!"
Right.
That there's a community service, i.e.,
Right.
the police, that are able to use lethal force if you try to intervene in that situation. And that to me is one of those that doesn't make sense to me. There's a piece to me. There's got to be a time where I can legally resist you, because at best case scenario, you're talking about striking an officer or fighting because you're seriously concerned for your life,
Right.
and now you're being charged with felony for assault on an officer.
Right.
That's an absurdity to me. I think the other side is criminalizing a failure to intervene. So for other officers, that's a police system that's based on policies, and they're supposed to report it and all that. But from my understanding so far, there's no criminalization for a police officer who fails to intervene. So, the guy standing there with his hand on his vest while somebody's getting choked out behind him, he sees it and does nothing. In my interpretation, that should be a criminal act in and of itself. That doesn't mean you're guilty. It means you're automatically charged. You're automatically indicted. The same way I would be if I was going 70 miles per hour through a 30 mile per hour zone. I'm not automatically guilty, but I'm going to automatically be charged with it. And then you go to court. I can't believe we have these arguments about whether or not somebody should even be indicted. Indicted is not guilt. Indicted is, did you do something that looks crazy and it shouldn't have happened? Yes. Why is this a fight that we're having? But there's no legislation protecting citizens from police, and that's a very, very concerning thing. It on its still comes back to citizens having to defend why you shouldn't have been hurt.
I actually that was one of the first things I thought of when I saw the George Floyd video. I was like, what beyond obviously how upset I was about what happened, it was also like the idea that if someone had tried to intervene to save their life, they at best would probably be going to jail for a very long time, and at worst they would have been killed. And the thing is too is that had someone intervened to save their life, there's no way that they could have proved like, oh, he would have died. Everybody would have said, oh, you're just exaggerating. He wasn't gonna die if you hadn't intervened. And it is very frustrating. On the other hand, too, it's difficult because you can understand, like, if everybody has the opportunity, if everybody is legally protected from resisting the cops, then everybody's going to resist the cops, and then then the cops are just another organization that has guns and people with fighting other people with guns. But I was going to say too, I think that's. I do think that there should be limits to their power compared to what they have now, but it's also a matter of there's probably going to still be an element of that they have power that a normal citizen doesn't have. But I think that goes to the importance that I was talking about earlier about how it needs to be. The hardest things in America to get, or the hardest places anywhere to get a job, should be positions of power, whether they're elected officials or police officers. If you're given more power, then it needs to be the most arduous process to get those positions, because we need to be screening out to make sure that we're only allowing the best of the best people into those positions, in my opinion.